I'm glad you're recording this. This will make it better. All right, so here's the idea. If I didn't know exactly what I was going to do when things went wrong, then things could get really hairy in my first career. So I started taking it very, very, very seriously. And the reason I said this is good news is because most people just don't do this. I'll give you an idea of what I mean by what I used to do. So this is how I started my career off. I was flying helicopters in the Marine Corps, and we dropped people off. These lazy Navy SEALs always wanted to have a plan together so that we could pick them back up and get them back on the ship where they could have what we called wet hots, right? They wanted to have nice, hot food and nice, wet, hot drinks to get themselves all warmed back up. I mean, it was always a very serious situation. This is an actual brownout situation. Those are 50 caliber machine guns sticking out the side of the helicopter. And when you land a bunch of helicopters in a zone, in this case it was 6, and all of a sudden you kick up a bunch of dirt, things get hairy real quick. And we needed to have a plan for exactly how we were going to get out of this without killing each other, literally running into each other when that's not at all what we were trying to accomplish. And God forbid we get captured by the enemy. So here's a picture of me with a really skinny neck in the middle. Obviously, not much has changed, but I don't want to get captured by the enemy. So as I roll through this presentation, and I'm not going to slide show you to death, I promise, but here's what I know for sure. Everybody thinks that there's always a way to do everything. There's a way to make the approach. There's a way to show up at people's doors. You're calling primarily, if you're in the trades, you're calling on homeowners. You're getting things done. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're calling on commercial. But at the end of the day, there's people there. So you probably got a way of doing it. And I'm not going to tell you that your way's wrong. My favorite thing to do is to listen to people tell me about their ways and then modify it to my way. That's the third one there, so that I can figure out a way to do it. But here's the default. Most people do it no way. So here's the problem most people have. There's marketing. I got to do everything I can to make that phone ring. But when that phone rings, I call that the initial approach. I want to know exactly what I'm going to say to engage curiosity or inspire confidence on my initial approach. So whatever it is, I want to make sure that I'm doing that. Initially, everybody in my world is a suspect. I don't know if they're going to do business with me or not. But if I don't engage curiosity or inspire confidence, they're not going to be prospect. And everybody who says, hey, look, I'm interested in whatever it is. I've trained heating and air conditioning companies. I've trained roofing companies, synthetic turf companies, plumbing companies. And the idea is they think everybody is a prospect. I don't believe that. I believe it's like putting a quarter into a gumball machine and then you twist it. And when you twist it, a gumball comes out. If a green one or a white one comes out, I like those minty ones. Those are qualified prospects. And if an orange one or a red one comes out, I'm not going to eat that stuff. I'm going to send that to Scott. That is an introduction or a referral to another professional that I can do business with. But there's no sense in me looking at that red gumball and wishing it was white or green. That's not going to make it minty flavored. In our world, prospects, they got a challenge that we can actually address, right? Something that we can do. If you're a plumber and they need their roof done, that's a referral, not something that you're going to do. And then even if they got the challenge, they got to be willing and able to invest the time and the money and the effort to get it fixed. And they got to figure out how to make a decision. If they're shopping me and they're just trying to get a competitive bid out of me, then I'm in trouble right out of the gates. So even once I know they're a prospect, we're not done yet. All right, now I got to turn them into a client. And as far as I'm concerned, we're still not done. Because after they pay me and they're happy with it, I tell people that all the time. I don't want you to love what I do for you. I want you to love it so much that you're bragging about it to everybody else so that I don't have to do any selling. So I'm not saying that my way is the only way, but I'm going to share with you some tactics today that I think are pretty cool. Now, with that in mind, I want to open it up to you guys. Tell me some challenges. What's hard in your world that you want me to address today? This is hard and I can't see your faces. I like to see real pain in people's faces before I go. Any challenges you want me to hit for sure today?
Multiple quotes. How to win them.
How to win a multiple quote.
Say it again.
How to win a multiple quote.
How to win a multiple quote. So they're chopping you and somebody else. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
So I got to differentiate myself from the competition, right? So help me out. How do you guys do it now? Anybody got some anecdotal ideas? Don't have to all come from me. And if it's going to be hard to talk, don't worry, it'll just be shorter.
Wear a uniform.
I
What?
said, wear a uniform.
Presentation.
For me.
Okay, wait a minute. Wear a uniform, present well. What else?
Sell your company,
Detail, like the more detailed you can be on a quote.
details on the quote.
Okay, details matter. I like all these so far. What do you think the problem is, and why don't these differentiate you from everybody else?
I think you have to create an emotional connection with someone.
Great emotional connection, someone said.
Oh, see, now that one I really like. I'm a big believer in that quote somebody said once upon a time that people might forget what you said and what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. So with that in mind, anybody got any anecdotals? How do I make them feel differently when I'm present than when the next bidder is coming in to be present if they're going out for multiple bids?
Care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Dude, I love that one.
Yeah, if you can't drive, nothing happens in sales till either somebody smiles or somebody cries. If you don't stir emotion in somebody, you ain't gonna make it happen.
Amen. I'm a big believer in what you just said. If I don't figure out an emotional connection, emotion is the catalyst for action. And I don't want to accuse people of, I don't want to incite those emotions. I want to try to how to get it out of them. Any anecdotals? How do I get them to admit that they're dissatisfied with their current situation?
I asked the first question is, if you could change anything about what you're currently doing, what would you change? And then I don't say a word.
Okay, I like that one a lot. Can I add a little spit polish to that, like a good Marine, and make my toes
Please
shine?
do.
All right, before I ask them anything you want to change, because then I look like that sneaky bottom feeder, pushy sales guy. It's too obvious. I say, hey, what do you like about the other bids you got? And then I say it again. What else do you like? And then I can ask the third question. I've earned the right to say, hey, if there's just one thing you want to change. It goes back to that old comedy, so you're saying I got a chance, but I got to warm them up first so they don't know where I am. All right, I want to make sure that I'm getting in there, I'm digging in a little bit on the what else do you like? What'd you like about the other bids that you got? Make sense? All right, so here's my biggest one. Right out of the gates, I want to align expectations with anybody that I'm talking to. So if I show up, they've done the marketing and I'm on my initial approach, here's exactly what I'm going to say. And that's the beauty of me, as imagine me with my virtual reality headset on right now. As soon as I show up at their doorstep, I'm going to say, hey, Tim Goering here from whatever heck plumbing company I'm from. Are there any time constraints I should be aware of? All right, right as soon as they say no or yes, it doesn't matter. If they don't have any time constraints, I want to make sure I interject any of mine. So if I've got to be out of there fast, I want to make sure I throw that in there now. And then I'm going to do something that most people don't do. Sir or ma'am, you tell me what you're looking for and I'll share with you what we can do about it. At the end of the day, if it doesn't look like it's appropriate, no thank you is okay. On the other hand, if you ask me to do something I can't do, I'm just going to give it to you straight. We can't do that. But if you like what you see, then we'll talk about next steps before we leave here today. Fair enough? That's my opening every single time. Here's how I remember it. Appreciation and time, your agenda and mine, no and yes are both fine, and agreement on the rhyme. When I channel my inner Matthew McConaughey, right away, I'm doing something different than everybody else did. Asking about any time constraints I should be aware of is me being considerate of their time. It's a very disarming kind of effect. I'll also get a feel for their personality as soon as they do that. Are they in a hurry or are they a really nice person? I get a feel for their mood right away, because even nice people that are in a bad mood could come off as a little bit rushed or sharp. And I want to be very aware of wherever their environment is. When I put them first, I'm automatically different than everybody else. Sir, ma'am, you. The word you gets them listening. You probably have some reasons that you brought me out of here, and I don't want to make any assumptions. You tell, I share. I said those words intentionally. You tell me what you're looking for. I'll share with you what we'll do about it. Your mom told you sharing is caring, right? And because sharing is caring, now your mom's in the meeting and your mom's on my side. And you share, I'll share with you what we'll do about it. I did something different right there also by telling them if for whatever reason you don't like our bid, then no thank you is okay. The difference between me and everybody else is I really am okay with them not with them not moving forward with me. And I do want to get permission. The little bit that I said there about if you ask me to do something we can't do, with your permission, I'd like to be transparent about it, is a preemptive strike on every single objection they can bring me later. Your price is too high. Your competition is cheaper. We need to have it done faster than that. Hey, remember back in the beginning when I said if you ask me to do something we can't do, we might be there. Is it going to be a deal killer if I tell you I can't get started until next week or whatever it is? By putting that piece in, I can now go back to it later. Because here's what I know. Expectations not communicated are premeditated disappointments. That's a mouthful. A lot of cool big words in there, though. Expectations. You got an expectation and I got an expectation. If I don't communicate them and I don't get you to communicate them back to me, then I've set the stage for disappointments in the future. Either you're going to be disappointed or I'm going to be disappointed. Now, let's say I don't do that, though. And now all of a sudden we're in this situation where I've given them a bid and I know they're going to shop it. How am I going to know if they're going to shop it? There's a trick question for you. How am I going to know if they're going to shop it?
They're going to stall you?
They might stall me, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask. And most people don't even consider that. When I told you I'm going to find out if they've got a challenge, when they give me a challenge, I know my next 9 questions. Tell me more about that. Give me an example. Don't leave out all the details. Man, how long you been thinking about this? Oh, man. What'd you try to do to fix it already? I might find out right there that they're shopping it. Hey, why do you think that didn't work? What are the consequences if you do nothing? Right? And then I'm going to ask them at least 6 questions about their decision-making process. When did you want to get started on this, or when did you want to see it done? Hey, what is your process for making a big decision like this? If they tell me they're shopping it, then I'll know right there. Now, if they are going to shop it, and I've already given them my price, I'm going to roll out the last look strategy. Anybody ever heard of last look strategy? All right, here it goes. Now, be careful because the psychology is deep here, so I'll try to go slow, which is uncharacteristic for me, as you probably can tell me already. All right, so when they say, hey, I'm going to make it okay. Hey, hopefully this isn't you. That is intentional. Hopefully this isn't you, but sometimes when I give people a price, their intention is to share that price with my competitors to see if they can get a lower bid. And I wait about 2 seconds, right? Because maybe they'll answer me, maybe they won't. And then if they answer me and they say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm like, if it's okay with you, can I have the last look? I'm not going to ask them not to do that. It's totally legal, but I want to align expectations around this. So if you're going to share it, can I have the last look? 2 seconds later, there's something magic about the 2 seconds. I know what their expectation is. If I say, can I have the last look? What do you think? I think their expectations. What do you think they're thinking? I'm implying when I say, can I have the last look? You got it, man. I heard somebody say discount. They think I'm going to beat any competitor's price. But here's where I'm going to throw something special at them. Write this one down because this one is cool. Here it goes. Hey, we're not always the cheapest. Matter of fact, oftentimes we're a little bit more expensive than the competition. Why do you think people choose us anyway? I call that the why diddy. Why do you think that is? Again, if I channel my inner Matthew McConaughey, I'll remember it. Why do you think that is? Now, there's only a couple ways they can go. Usually what happens, if I ask it, I struggle a little bit when I ask it. The psychology is, oh, poor Tim is struggling. I'm going to be curious on purpose so that they can be the hero of this story. Because if they guess correctly, I'm going to give them a dopamine hit that most people are not giving them. I'm going to say, you're right. And that's what they want to hear. So if they say, well, Tim, it's maybe because you buy the materials differently. Exactly. Why else? Maybe because you put a little bit more design work in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why else? All right. So whatever it is. Now, if they catch me, which they often do, if I'm talking to somebody and they say, well, because you think you're better than everybody else. I'm like, we do, but there's a reason that we do it. For example, and I got to be ready with a metaphor here, right? And the metaphor I like to use is, you know, everybody's got a doctor that they use for all their colds, maybe the birth of their children. But when it comes time for your top heart surgery, why do you think people don't shop it when they're going to their heart surgeon? What? And I want them to tell me there's more to it than price because most people just don't arrive there automatically. But now they've said it. And that's the tricky part. There's a great quote by a guy named Kenneth Graham. And what he said is the single strongest human instinct is to impart information. And the second strongest human instinct is to resist it. Ooh, that's heavy. So what I want to do is I want to get them imparting information. I want them talking. And then if I don't resist it, we're having a conversation because I can lead the witnesses with my questions. So let me share another chart with you. I love this one. Hopefully you've seen it before because it is a winner and it's out there. Good, fast, and cheap, pick two. Now I can't say this to somebody because it's just too cheeky. It's cute to say, but it's ineffective if you say it. But when I'm on my last look strategy, I can use something like this mentally. Like, a lot of people, of course they want it cheap. I can appreciate that. But there's always something else that matters to them. What else matters to them? Stay in the pocket, ask the question. Let them tell you they care about quality work. Let them tell you they need it done fast. But you can't have everything. If I'm going to be really good or really good and really cheap, it might take a while. If I'm going to be really cheap and really fast, you got to wonder about the quality. If I give somebody $100 to detail my car and they're done in 10 minutes, I'm suspicious. If I pay somebody tens of thousands of dollars to do my roof and they're done in a day, ooh, I got to worry. If I'm paying somebody to put synthetic turf in my backyard, so I got a really cool putting green down here in Florida, and I can compete with all those PGA stars that live around me, man, if they're done in one day, I got to wonder about the foundation. So there's always something else here, and you got to dedicate yourself to that. Otherwise, you fall into this trap. So that's the last look strategy. I know everybody wants this. They got customer expectations that are huge and they got a budget that's tiny. But that's not me. I want to develop a walk-away presence. Anybody care to guess what a walk-away presence is?
They don't forget you.
They don't forget you.
It's a little different than that, but I like that though.
Get her to leave it.
Yeah, take it or leave it makes me feel mean. And remember, I don't want him to. I don't want him to think Tim was mean just because I was a Marine. I mean, I want him to think I'm tough, not mean. What do you think it is?
Willing to walk away so they come forward.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right? When they know, and I aligned expectations in the beginning. I tell you, if for whatever reason you're not feeling it, no thank you's okay. And if you ask me to do something I can't do, I promise to be transparent. Well, because I drew that line in the sand as an expectation, I'm willing to walk away. Now, I may concede my price at some point. We're not doing negotiations training today. However, I follow the SEC rules of negotiation. If they're trying to press me on price, they're comparing me to somebody else and they're shopping me. The first S is struggle on purpose. It triggers the human nature that people want to save you when you're struggling. When I struggle, if they fold, that's fantastic. The E is empower them. Before I offer a concession, I'm going to ask them, well, let's see if we're even close. What did you have in mind? If we're not close, I'm walking away. If we are close, the C is a concession, I may make a concession. However, if I'm going to make a concession, I'm going to get an IOU in return. So it's going to sound something like this. Hey, let's say I did do that. What can I expect in return? And I want to leave that sentence and let it hang because oftentimes they'll be more generous on their side with a concession than I would have asked for on my side. But I need to have those concessions in mind, right? And here's what I mean. Maybe it's a positive Google review. Maybe it's an introduction to a few of their neighbors or somebody else that I can do business with. Whatever it is. Maybe it's a concession with regard to when we're going to start it or when they needed it finished. But I don't want to give a concession without getting one. Any questions about that? That's a lot. Last look.
What does
All-
struggle on purpose look like?
What does struggle on purpose look like, Tim? I call it the Columbo.
You know, you nailed it right there. I was going to try to demonstrate it, but then you said Columbo and made me laugh. All right, struggle on purpose is, here's the problem with smart people. And I put you all in that category because anybody who's in a trade, you've got a skill that the average human being doesn't have. And chances are you've done what you do a few times. So you're an expert at it. And it's very hard to pretend. We used to call it the dummy curve. And people hated that because they're like, I'm not dumb. Even struggle on purpose is hard. Maybe I can make it easier by calling it the curiosity curve. Stay curious. Instead of giving people the answers, step back and allow them the dignity to have the answer themselves. So here's what struggle on purpose is going to be. Hey, Tim, can you lower that price? I always try to make that deep breath first. You know, I don't think I can in this case. But just in case I'm wrong, help me out. What did you have in mind? When I'm struggling, they are forced to do the talking, and that's what I want them to do. No matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to stay curious about why. You know, is price the only thing that you're looking for? Is a struggle. Or I say, hey, hopefully this isn't you, but a lot of people say, hey, Tim, I'm only making this decision on price. And I'm like, you know, when they say that, I show them that horse picture again, or that's what I have in my head. Oftentimes when people say price is everything, that's not really what they're thinking. When I was getting my roof done, there was way more to it than just price. I wanted to make sure I didn't have to do it for another 15 or 20 years. It needed to be good quality work. Does that answer the question? Does that scratch the itch?
Yep. All right, Tim, I've got a question.
Yep.
A lot of us in the trades businesses might have a lack of a structured process to follow up. Just talk a little bit about follow up, how often, why, what it would look like.
Okay, here's the secret sauce, and you're going to hate this answer. I'm a big believer in what I call BAM FAM, book a meeting from a meeting. And I don't do it like that, but here's how I do it. I try to end every single conversation with these 5 words. Hey, Scott, hey, thanks a lot for spending time today. From your perspective, what's next? Back to that aligning expectations. When I say, from your perspective, what's next at the end, I get you to talk. Now, let's say you say, you know, I'm going to think this over, Tim, and I'll get back to you by Friday. Okay, that sounds awesome. If, you know, just on the off chance that I don't hear from you by Friday, because experience tells me sometimes that happens, how do you want me to respond? And I wait that 2 seconds. I'm struggling on purpose, and I'm hoping they're saying, well, then give me a call. Some people prefer text, some call, some an in-person drop by. I want to align expectations on everything. Hey, every now and then when people say, call me on Friday, I get ghosted. Can we make ghosting out of bounds? Anybody ever get ghosted, or am I the only one? Hopefully, Scott, you're seeing some heads nod. That's when they tell you that they're going to call you again, but then they've shopped your bid and you never hear from them again. Where'd who go?
I got another one.
All right. Hit me.
A lot of these folks may have people taking inbound phone calls. What's the best way to train staff to convert more inbound sales?
Well, now you tricked me by saying what's the best way to train them, because this is what I do for a living, Scott, is leadership, sales, and customer service training. And I don't think I can answer that in 30 seconds when most of my clients stay with me for multiple years to nail it. Number 1, know what they're driving at. Number 2, practice that craft. However, it starts with alignment of expectations. So as soon as somebody calls in, when all that marketing finally pays off and they call in, I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. So I'm going to say something along the lines of appreciation and time, your agenda and mine. No and yes are both fine, and agreement on the rhyme to get them talking. But it's okay to set boundaries. Contrary to popular belief, people love rules and they love to have expectations. If they're calling you for something, they probably got a little bit of anxiety. And we use what we call a 30-second commercial to figure that out. So here's what a 30-second commercial might sound like. And hang on a second, I'm going to put up a chart so that you can see it so you don't just think I'm winging it. I don't wing anything. Anything. So here's what I'm talking about. When they call in and I've done my upfront contract, hey, you tell me what you're looking for, I'll share you what I got. When I'm done with it, I do what's called a you start technique. So when I'm done saying, hey, with any luck, we'll figure this out. So what's the challenge that you got today? If they say anything except, going into their actual problem, at some point they're going to be wondering, hey, how is Tim's company different than anybody else's? And I'm going to do what I call a pattern interrupt. It's reverse psychology. This particular format, and I know this is a lot up here, is reverse psychology at the beginning and reverse psychology at the end. So a pattern interrupt means I need to interrupt the normal pattern. I don't want them to think I'm like anybody else. So right out of the gates, I may say something like, well, can't double click on it when you got your wrong cursor. I might say something along the lines of, hey, this may not even be relevant to you, but rather than tell you what we do, okay, if I share with you in 25 seconds the top 3 reasons that other people want to do business with us. And the idea here is I've introduced other, meaning third party story, attribution theory. People don't want to admit they've got challenges, but when we're talking about other people, it's inclusive. The tribe creates the vibe. This is almost psyops. It's so relevant. The tribe matters when it's social convenience, it's social adoption. Other people have done it, and here's why. Well, they were frustrated about their current situation. They were worried about this, that, or the other thing, and they had concerns about money. And I try to relieve pressure at the end. With any luck, that's not you. So if I've got staff, I don't want them to be order takers. Matter of fact, in 2 years, AI is going to do all of that. I want human beings that are not artificial intelligence that can have intimate conversations with other human beings on the other end of the line. Thoughts?
Any questions? I'm going to get you to do one thing for me, Tim. Let me make sure the Austin group doesn't have any questions. Any questions here? Okay, Tim, I want to take 2 minutes on each of these 5 topics. Give me your, I think you already did, but you can reinforce it. You can be repetitive. Give me your best couple of minutes of suggestions on opening a conversation around sales. And it might be the upfront contract again.
It might be the upfront contract and it might be the 30-second commercial. It depends on the situation, right? But the idea is I want their opinion first to the greatest extent possible. I want to do whatever it takes to get them talking so that I'm not guessing. I know this about human beings. They expect that they can show up and say, Tim, what do you do? How are you different? And how much is this going to cost me? That's an interrogation. And I want to align expectations. We call it equal business stature, Scott. So the idea is this. I am not going to let them take high status and talk down to me, nor am I going to take high status and put them in low status and talk down to them. And the upfront contract that I talked about earlier with my Matthew McConaughey voice, appreciation and time, your agenda and then mine, is how I align expectations on everything. Everything. Including going to dinner with my wife, right? So she says, Tim, where are we going to dinner on Friday night? Hey, thanks a lot for asking, baby. Let's talk about that for a minute. You probably got some ideas, and I got some too. By the way, you're allowed to hate my ideas as long as I can push back gently on yours. With any luck, we'll have a great dinner. Fair enough? She says, yes. I say, where do you want to go? Now, it's amazing how that you start technique works. I'll tell you how it was invented just because it's a funny story, and then I'll let you go to the next bullet, Scott. It started with, let's see if you guys go for it. If I want you to do the talking, here's how it was set up. Remember those old knock knock jokes? You know, knock knock, who's there? Somebody start a knock knock joke for me real quick.
Knock, 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 knock.
See, it worked. If I want you to talk, all I have to do is present myself as the authority, set some basic rules, and then give you the stage. Knock knock jokes are supposed to start with me, and I got you guys telling me a silly joke. I can't even see your faces, so I don't even know if you think it's funny. Thank goodness I think it's funny. Give me another one, Scott. Make it hard.
Okay, so you've opened the conversation. Now you're in the presentation, you're in the discussion. Give us 2 or 3 top tips.
Top tips when I'm in the presentation is don't present to anybody that hasn't presented to you the challenge and the consequences of not solving for that challenge. I want to be a world-class listener because everybody else sucks at it. So when they say something as simple as, well, give me a trade to make it relevant of somebody who's in the room. We talking about roofers or plumbers or synthetic turf or landscaping? What do we got?
Let's do a roofer.
Fair enough, roofer. So tell me about it. Tell me about your roof, right? And I'm going to go through all 9 of my questions that I've prepared. Hang on a second. I'll show them to you in order so that you don't think I'm winging it. I don't wing anything. I think I told you that. All right, here we go. Get it up there. The first thing I want them is I want to make sure that they understand that I care about their challenge before I start prematurely solving for it. Tell me more about that roof. Like, tell me the story. What exactly is going on? Be specific. How many leaks are we talking about? Right? That's when they see that I understand and I get to understand what exactly we're talking about. From them seeing it, I call this the SOP, I want them to own it. How long have you been dealing with these leaks? How many times have you done the little $1,200 repairs before you finally arrived at the idea that you might have to fix the whole roof? What have you tried already? Who have you used already? Who have you put these bids out to already? And why are you talking to me now? Again, I want them to own the idea that they're culpable. So again, I'm not going to present to their challenges until I get their challenges out of them. I don't want to arbitrarily just guess. Once they own it, I want them to prioritize the fix. So what are the consequences if you don't do it? If you just do a mini repair for $1,200 instead of putting a whole new $45,000 roof on your house, I want them to tell me the consequences. And I call this is the beginning of the impact ratio. The top of the equation is the consequence. The bottom of the equation is the time, money, and effort that they're going to have to invest with me to make the problem go away. And the lower number, the denominator of the fraction, needs to be much lower. Everybody will pay a penny to fix a dime problem. Nobody will pay a dime to fix a penny problem. So before I start presenting, I want to make sure that I've addressed a challenge. And even when I presented the challenge, I'm going to wade into talking about the investment. Here's what I mean by the investment. Think about it like this. You pay $25 to $40 to join a gym. Is that going to get you in great shape?
No.
Let you go.
No. Okay, you got to go. So you have to invest money and then you have to go. That's time. Are you going to be in great shape if you just show up every now and then? Turns out once you go, you also have to put some effort in. There's going to be effort on their side, and I want to make sure I address this. If I'm going to do your roof, it's going to be a major inconvenience. We're going to have a dump truck in your front yard because we're going to have to get all that stuff off the top of the roof, all those shingles, all that stuff that's up there now. And it's the neighbors are going to complain about it. It's going to be loud. The workers are going to be there, and the workers are going to eat lunch. They're going to take breaks. They're going to try and take naps in your side yard. They're going to have to use the bathroom every now and then. That means they might put a porta potty on the curb in your driveway for 2 weeks. Somebody in your neighborhood, I almost said Karen, but I wouldn't say that because I'm sensitive. Right? Somebody's going to complain about that. So the idea is I want to make sure I align those expectations before I present. It's no plug and play. So to prevent them from just sucking me in, I'm going to say, hey, before I start telling you what we do, would it be okay if I take a step backwards and make sure I understand the challenge that you're trying to overcome before I jump into that? And by the way, all 9 of those questions I just showed you, we're talking about 5 minutes of me power listening. That's it. 5 minutes of me power listening changes the dynamic of the entire conversation.
Okay, now you're ready to ask for the order. A couple of tips.
Okay, I presented. When I've presented something, I want to get a feel for how did that settle in? So we call this the thermometer close. Here it comes. Okay, Scott, thank you for sharing all that with me. That was fantastic. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being, Tim, I don't think we're going to use you, and 5 being, let's move. Where do you think you are? Now, I'm ready for all 5 answers that they can present me. I'm not going to go into the psychology because he told me 2-minute answers, right? I'm not going to go into the psychology of why this works. But when you give somebody that kind of wiggle room, it's a lot less commitment than yes or no, right? I'm not the only one on the planet with commitment issues, right? Because I got divorced and it cost me $2 million. Whatever. Yeah, I got PTSD from it. But if they say 1 or 2, then I'm not moving forward. So I can just say that. Hey, it doesn't sound like we're moving forward, and that's okay. I always want to be back to that walk away present. I want to be the sound, sober, sensible professional in the room. If you don't find what you're looking for when you go somewhere else, we'll still be here. And I want them to feel good about it when they leave so that they wonder, what did I miss out on? If they say 3, I'm not going to say, what's going to take to get you to a 5? Because that's what they want me to say. This is subtle reverse psychology, but again, I'm preparing for every inevitability. So if they say 3, I'm going to say, it sounds to me like I'm probably missing something. Now, remember, I did that painful. I asked all 9 questions. I talked about the money. I talked about their decision step. So chances are I didn't miss anything. But if they give me a 3, I'm just going to fall on my sword a little bit. It sounds to me like you're kind of there, but maybe we're missing something. What I miss? If they say 4, that's kind of optimistic. So I might be happy about 4. 4 sounds pretty good to me. I would never give somebody a 5 because I don't want them to think that it's a done deal because they're in sales and they'll charge me more. With that in mind, what did I miss though? Is there anything else? I'm always going to be slightly less enthusiastic than they are. Even if they say 5, I'm going to go with this. 5 is awesome. I hope that we can exceed your expectations. But I'm just curious, what tipped the scales? What made you select us? And the reason I do that is I want to hear in their words, why do you like me? You can use that with your wife or your kids too, your spouse or your kids, right? If somebody says to me, hey, Tim, that's a nice shirt. I can say, really? I was thinking about throwing it out. What'd you like about it? And I can get another compliment. But now they're saying it, not me. I always want the ideas to be theirs. I want them to be the hero of the story. I will abandon my need to be the hero of their story.
Awesome. Last one. So they don't always go from, red to green. What's the best tip for overcoming objections where you don't sound defensive?
Ooh, can I show you another picture?
Of
I love
course.
this. Don't be this guy. Don't be Jed. Right? No justifying, explaining, and defending because it puts you in the upper status talking down to them. Just because they're resisting you, remember that Kenneth Graham quote I gave you early? Resistance is normal. Let it be okay. Right? So the first thing I'm going to do when somebody is objecting is make it okay. And then back to my strategy of being slightly less enthusiastic than they are. I don't need to justify. I want to be the calm, cool, and collected person in the room. Never in the history of the world have the words calm down ever calmed anybody down. So I want to go with slow down. Slow down. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. Or, okay, it sounds like you're asking me for a lower price. Let it be okay. What'd you have in mind? I want to have my strategy tight around any objection that they can throw me. Let's say it's an easier one. Like, if you can't get started by next week, I understand you got a lot of clients, but I really need to have this done by Easter because I got family coming into town. Then I can say, okay, well, it sounds like it might be over. Is there anything that I could do that would change your mind on that? Why not stay in the game? And what we call it is acknowledge and reverse. Before you fold, acknowledge what they just said without getting defensive. This works in relationships too, right? And then ask a question about it. I want to dedicate myself to asking more than one question. I might ask as many as three. We call it the rule of 3+. So even if they give me an answer, I'm going to ask them a question about the answer that they gave me. So as long as I'm in the game, Scott, I know my pattern. And by the way, I built out well, let me see if I can pull this up really quick. I built what I call a resistance mitigation tactics spreadsheet. I know, Tim, you're ridiculously crazy. I get it. I've collected every possible way. This is a pretty big investment. We need to review this with so-and-so. We need to think about it. How long have you been doing this? I don't think this is going to be a fit. How are you different? I've collected 84 so far. And for every single one of them, I've brainstormed what's the preventative tactic that I could have used so that objective wouldn't come up again. And then should it come up, what are my alternative ways of dealing with it? What? So you'd have to give me more than 2 minutes to give you 84 answers.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir, Moose.
Has anybody ever told you no? Pretty good.
Do you ever
You
get
might have to
told?
repeat it for me. Say it
Do you ever
again.
get told- What was it? Do you ever get told no? You?
Oh yeah, all the time. But I'm okay with it. It's any biblical scholars in the room? Anybody know what did the Bible tell you about how many times you should turn the other cheek?
70 times
7 times 70.
Yeah. That's it. It was the 7 and the 70 thing, right? So the idea is this: I'm going to go into every situation expecting the no. That sounds almost crazy. Maybe even fishing for it. Because the idea here is I want to build up my no resiliency so that it's okay. That's why I put it in my upfront contract. Remember when I said, if you ask me to do something I can't do, I may have to say no to you and you can say no to me. I put that in there intentionally. And to keep myself on track, I'll show you one more picture. I invite this little feller to the meeting. I call him Franck. Franck is an invisible French Revolutionary soldier that carries a real M1 rifle with a bayonet fixed to it, and he's going to shoot me if I don't stick to my system. Here's what my system is. I need to find a problem that I can fix. If I don't find it, he stabs me. I need to get them to realize it and admit it by asking them questions and listening to the answers. And I need to get them to commit to fixing it now, or I'm at no and I've asked for it. What? So yes, no is totally okay with me. But when I develop that walk-away presence, when I get good at being that sound, sober, sensible professional that can take no in a right manner, when they meet the other people, they aren't going to give them the same feelings that I'm going to give them. They're going to put all that pressure in. They're going to be those bottom feeders that made all those adjectives you guys gave me in the beginning real. And by contrast, I'm going to look different.
Awesome stuff. Tim, I want you to take 1 minute because every time I hear you talk, there's people that want more of you. Talk a little bit about it. He has a great program. No dog in the hunt. Don't get a commission. Just want to help you all. And this guy's a great trainer. Talk about how you train people that want more of you.
I'm full, Scott. I can't take any more clients. No, I'm just kidding. All right, here's how we do it. First one's free. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, I run a sales mastery session, me and my team. And we typically have about 20 to 50 professionals on there. And we change the topic every single week, but both days during the week, it's the same topic. So maybe we'll do resistance mitigation tactics. Maybe we'll do how do I describe what I do or how I'm different in 30 seconds or less. Maybe we'll do the last look strategy. But it's an opportunity for professionals to come together. I introduce a topic, and then we go to a breakout room and we practice it. Because this I know. You hear it and you forget it. You see it and you remember it. And then when you say it, that's when you start to understand it and embrace it and utilize it. So most of my clients, they spend multiple years with me because they realize it makes them money. You just have to do the math. How much money are you willing to invest to make sure that you get over that hump? And it needs to be a 10x number. If you're going to pay me for sales training, then you got to make 10 times that number to make it make sense. So if you want to come and visit one, just email me at makingluck@yahoo.com.